The slate is clean. Every racer shows up to the first race of the season with even points, 0. But the reigning champ has 3 #1 plates in a row. But who can dethrone King Gagne? Number 2, Josh Herrin is the top contender. The 2022 Supersport champion amassed enough points to make him runner-up in 2023. And he's better than ever. But he's not the only one who can win races and championships. This is the most talented field we have ever seen in MotoAmerica Superbikes. It's time to put all the off-season work to the test. The season begins right now. It's time for the MotoAmerica AMA FIM North American Road Race Championship, our first round of 9 for 2024. It's MotoAmerica Superbikes at Road Atlanta, right here in Braselton, Georgia, at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. And we are setting the stage for Steel Commander Superbike race number 1 and our first race of the season. Hello everyone and welcome to the show. Welcome to the broadcast booth. I'm Greg White, standing alongside 2-time national champ Jason Pridmore. Now Jason, we have 20 races on deck, but the talking point leading into this race is the fact that there has been so many changes here in the Steel Commander Superbike paddock.
It was an exciting winter for MotoAmerica, and I think that this year, going into our 10th year anniversary, our first race here in Atlanta, there's been so much movement, so many changes. I think on paper, this definitely works out to be the most competitive one we're going to see this year in Superbike. You
want to get caught up on all those changes? Well, here's the third member of our broadcast team, Hannah Lopa, with more.
Greg, it's MotoAmerica's 10th season, and there is no shortage of familiar faces in our Superbike lineup. Among them, Josh Herrin returns to Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati team for his 3rd consecutive season. Both Brandon Posch and Richie Escalante have re-signed from last year with Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki. For Cameron Beaubier, his season was cut short due to injury the end of last year, but he returns aboard his Tytler Cycle Racing BMW. Cameron Peterson returns to the Fresh and Lean Progressive Yamaha team alongside our defending champion, Jake Gagne, looking to go for his 4th consecutive title. And where some things remain the same, there are a multitude of changes. After a season abroad, Loris Baz joins Warhorse HSBK once again for a 2-rider Superbike effort alongside Josh Herrin. After much success in flat track, JD Beach makes his long-awaited return to road racing, this time on a Tytler Cycle Racing BMW. Sean Dylan Kelly not only returns to MotoAmerica, but making his Superbike debut on his Top Pro Motorsports BMW. And this season, we have 2 Hondas in the field. Ashton Yates and your reigning king of the baggers and reigning Stock 1000 champ, Hayden Gillum. It really speaks volumes about the growth of the class to see renewed interest and support from Honda. Greg, with 24 riders in the field, there's one thing that's certain. The depth of talent in the field is unlike we have ever seen before in MotoAmerica Superbike racing.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. And Jay, here's the support for it. Of the people we have in the MotoAmerica era, 17 national champions.
Yeah, unbelievable when you look at it. And Jake Gagne, our 3-time defending Superbike champion, talking with him the other day. He's excited about this season. Of course, we got Cam Beaubier, 5-time Superbike champion. Struggled a little bit towards the end of last year, but he's back and healthy and ready to go.
And Hannah is on the hustle today, and she's already on the grid, so let's get down to her.
Greg, starting from the pole for the 2nd time in his Superbike career is Bobby Fong, who's pulling double duty with the King of the Baggers class and the Superbike here this weekend. Back-to-back race weekends for you, Bobby, on the bagger, and now your first ever Superbike race weekend once again with this wrench team. This is a really physical track. What is it asking of you from a physical standpoint as far as switching back and forth between those bikes?
Oh man, it is a burner out there, but honestly, everybody's going to be dealing with the same situation. This is why we work hard in the winter, but honestly, I got to give it up to this Wrench 80RR one. It's making me look good out there. So we just got to keep our head on straight, conserve a little energy in the beginning, and then just go deep in the end.
Best of luck out there to Bobby Fong, who is running back-to-back right after this race into the bagger race, guys.
And this is not the easiest place to do it. Right here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. It is a very physical track. Jason, it goes up and down. It's 2.5 miles, but it is a rough one.
It's a fast lap around here, Greg, on the Superbikes. The minute 23 seconds you see down through turn 1, tricky uphill through turn 3, 4, down that famous S's into turn 5, up over the brow of a hill. On these Superbikes, they're going to be wanting to wheelie. All the electronics are going to be having to take control there. Out of turn 7, then you're going to see these bikes, Greg, 180 plus mile an hour down that back straightaway into hard braking turn 10, up over another brow down into turn 12, a big hill on the downhill, and then through that last fast right or slow right-hander on your run to the checker flag.
So really awesome racetrack here, and it can promote a lot of drafting and passing. Well, multi-champions here with 5 minutes to go of racing. Beaubier's won 5. Gagne has won 3. Who starts off their title run? We'll find out.
You heard Roger as Hannah Lopa was talking to Bobby Fong. He said it is a burner out there. You've talked about the physicality that Road Atlanta requires of the riders all weekend. And if it were you out there, I mean, what steps can you take to make sure that you're ready beforehand?
Well, you'd have to, if you're not in shape by now, it's too late. So, you know, what you really try to do, that's why you put that, like Bobby said, you put the work in the off season. It's going to show up at tracks like this. But also, before going in the race weekend, you got to start preparing early, trying to stay hydrated well before the weekend. Also, you know, your diet and all that stuff. That just all plays. There's just so many little percentage, especially when the field is this deep. And for Bobby, I know he puts in a lot of work. A lot of the other guys, Sean does as well. All those guys are at the top are in good shape, and that's going to pay off today. But just being prepared and not taking shortcuts, not only preparing with your team, but also preparing your body.
You see the crews walking away now. It means we are getting closer to the warm-up lap. But we look down the grid just a little bit. There are some names that are more in the mid-pack, like a Hayden Gillum. He's starting in 10th. Brandon Posh behind him in 11th. I've got Max Flinders in 12th. The guys that are there and back, what do they do in the opening laps to kind of get comfortable, get into a rhythm, and then be able to move forward?
I think just try to get with that next group in front of them and see if they can't figure out how to get a little bit faster. Brandon Posh, you expect him to move forward. He mentioned that something happened in that second qualifier today, little miscommunication, and wasn't able to go out and try to get that good lap. But, you know, for Max, that's a good qualifying position for Max, Nolan, Ashton. All those guys are going to have their little internal battle, you know, the privateers, and they're going to want to come out on top.
And the riders are now out on the track by themselves. All the crew members have left, and they're going to get the warm-up lap and get one last look at this racetrack. The sun is now fully on board, and when they qualified yesterday in the first session of qualifying, the track was greasy. We're going to have very similar conditions today, and as we get going, I'm going to send it back over to Greg White and Jason Pridmore to take you through it.
Steel Commander Superbike coverage is brought to you by Steel Commander Corps, a leading steel building manufacturer offering expertise, innovation, and a dedication to quality. And by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series.
All right, we're back here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta for the Steel Commander Superbike category. Jay, I'm not gonna lie. I gotta get some land and get a Steel Commander building so I can put motorcycles in it. That's the type of stuff they do. Good to see the Honda CBR 1000 RR-R SP2.
Sure.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, that is a mouthful.
Out on the racetrack.
Yeah, it was really nice seeing a rig pull in here with HRC on it, and this man right here, Hayden Gillum, he's going to be racing that stock 1000 class when we head to Barber in a few weeks' time. So he's going to be on that Honda 1000 machine, as is Ashton Yates, we said in our opening. So these guys right now, you want to get a good warm-up lap. Don't want to try to get your tires at the temperature. Don't want to put any extra heat into them as far as wearing them out, though, Greg, because there's warm-up laps here, with it being as hot as it is and the track being as hot as it is. So let's have a look at our starting grid. You know, going from pole position today, Bobby Fong. I mean, unbelievable effort. And how about Sean Dillon Kelly? If you'd had that in your betting charts at the beginning of the weekend, you'd be a rich guy. Josh Herron third, Gagne, Beaubier, and Baz are going to be rounding out row 2. Then we have Cam Peterson, JD Beach, and Richie Escalante, the first of our Suzukis. Hayden Gillum, Brandon Posh, and Max Flinders just outside of row number 4. Then we're going to have Benjamin Smith, Nolan Lampkin, and Ashton Yates, along with Jason Waters, Ezra Beaubier. Good to see him back here, and Joe Giannato. Then we're going to have Alex Orango, who's teammates to SDK, up at the front. William Posse, Danilo Lewis, and Bobby Davis round out our field.
Just incredible to see Bobby Fong on pole. The Wrench Motorcycles Yamaha R1, a motorcycle that's been worked on quite heavily over the winter, but it's really good to see the number 6, Cameron Beaubier, on the Tytler Cycle BMW back in race action. We certainly missed having him.
Beaubier and Gagne on the second row. You would have probably figured they'd be on the first row, but that's what we're going to see this year in MotoAmerica.
19 laps scheduled for this Steel Commander Superbike race. Here we go, revs are up. Clutches are out, we're away racing. It doesn't look like our pole sitter got a good launch either, Bobby Fong, but it looks like it could be Sean Dillon Kelly, and there goes Josh Herron up the inside. And just like that, from Moto2 to the front of a Steel Commander Superbike race for the moment goes STK, but Herron goes up the inside. It looks like Josh Herron on the number 2 bike on that Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati will lead.
Yeah, he does a really good job. STK got that bike off the line first time for him in race conditions. So STK slots himself there into second. Bobby Fong did okay, Greg. It looked like he was going to go back a few spots to your point, but he was able to get that bike into third spot. But Josh Herron, with his experience, snuck up the inside of STK as they went up through turn 1, put himself in a good spot through those S's. He finds himself leading as they get ready to head onto this back straightaway and unleash these Superbikes for the first time.
Jake Gagne, your number 1 plate, snugly in 4th position. And SDK, Sean Dillon Kelly on that Top Pro Racing BMW M1000RR. Alpha, the technical partner, and there goes Cameron Beaubier in 5th place, also on a BMW M1000RR.
Really not a lot of movement between our top 5-6 riders. Everybody kind of line astern there. Cam Peterson was able to make a move on Beaubier. Beaubier came out of that turn 7 just behind Gagne and would lose a spot, but it's going to be Josh Herron leading him down that hill for the first time and lead the first lap in 2024.
And a good chance for Sean Dillon Kelly to get an idea of where he stands corner to corner. You see coming out of 10B, he lost a little bit on the drive and onto the front straightaway. He'll lose it to Bobby Fong. The number 50 on the Wrench Motorcycles Yamaha R1 goes to the front. And of course, you look at the rear end of that motorcycle, and that, as Gagne goes into P3 for Bobby Fong and the Wrench motorcycle, you see that the new swing arm design by Nick Seiling on the back of that motorcycle has been a huge improvement and great feeling for Bobby Fong.
I mean, look at how much Bobby just closed that gap down to Herron down through the S's. So Bobby Fong has a very raceable bike underneath him. We saw him in qualifying, Greg. I don't think there was anybody here that was going to be putting money on the number 50 to get on the pole position in our opening race this year. But here he is, and he looks very racy doing it. Josh Herron doing what he does, getting out front early. But Jake Gagne now, that number 1 plate, he is going to get in the draft of both these motorcycles as they head down that back straightaway. And you got the 2 BMWs as Beaubier has now got by Cam Peterson. And the first 5 are trying to make a small breakaway early.
And Bobby Fong, of the top 5 racers, Jay, I want to point out, is the only racer in this group that's doing double duty. He's doing Mission King of the Baggers, and he's the only rider that has a job outside of being a motorcycle racer. He works for Day and Easy, his leather sponsor as well.
Yeah, he's wearing a lot of hats, and he's got to come in and change leathers in between sessions to jump from one bike to the next. I can't imagine riding a Superbike and then jumping on a bagger back to back. That's got to be a big transition. But Bobby Fong's been making it look easy so far here in Road Atlanta. First flying lap for these guys into the low 25s, 25-1 for Fong. As you saw, Herron had a bit of a gap going into lap 2, but the first, second and third place guys have ran down the number 2. We have a faller here. That's going to be Posse there in the gravel. I believe he was a little bit further back on our grid. Good to see him up and rolling again.
Back to the front we go, and Gagne has definitely found something from qualifying to this race. He's looking really good. Jake Gagne, your number 1 in the Attack Performance Yamaha R1. A good look at Gagne and his really comfortable riding position. So much work being done on that Attack Performance Yamaha R1 over the course of the off-season, and all of it revolved around chassis improvements in terms of getting less electronics to interfere with the drivability of that Yamaha R1. And right now, all the work that Richard Stamboli and the Attack Performance Yamaha team has done is definitely paying dividends, as now the battle between the BMWs rages on, with Cameron Beaubier taking over 4th spot.
And I don't think this is a bad spot for STK. I think as this race settles in, the number 40 there, who we talked about, has come from Moto2 in his last 2 seasons. I would say probably for him a disappointing couple of seasons, and what a shot in the arm this is for him. He gets his old crew chief Jeremy Toy back gets him over to this new team that they're here at Road Atlanta. They do some preseason testing, and look at the speed that he already has. Now he can go and he can learn from the 4 ahead of him and how the tire life is going to be, how hot the track is, and things like that. Cam Peterson also making a nice run. As we see, it looks Brandon Posh has gone down on the exit of 10B. So Brandon Posh, not something we see him do a lot, Greg, tip off, but he has done that in turn 10B, I believe.
So disappointment for the Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki rider. They'll be back to fight tomorrow. But up front, continuing to lead the way is Herrin, dictating the pace. But a couple riders behind him, it was Cameron Beaubier at a 25-1, so far the fastest lap of the race. And now you get a look once again at the drivability of that Ducati Panigale V4R versus those Yamaha R1s, and of course the blazingly fast BMW M1000RR of Cameron Beaubier. And you can see how much acceleration that Ducati has over those Yamahas down the back straightaway, and Fong just a little bit better on the lever. Now keep in mind, Herrin doesn't have to be, Fong does. So Herrin's gonna not abuse the front tire as much as Fong does to close that gap. Down the hill comes Fong. Is he going to make a shot? He does. He takes a shot. He's going to go up the inside, and Bobby Fong will take over the lead as they come to the stripe. It's going to be 15 laps to go, and Herrin's going to use that Ducati horsepower to motor on by.
Well, you just got into that turn, that last corner there, where it put Bobby. It made his radius so tight on the entry, it pushed him out a little bit wide, and Josh Herrin was able to just do a typical kind of crossover there. You're going to see Bobby gets in there, gets really tight. Josh gets his bike turned back underneath and was able to get the Ducati up off the edge of the tire and accelerate back past down that front straightaway. And I'm really impressed here. Cam Peterson's done a nice job of closing these top 5 riders down. It's not easy, Greg, when you get second and a half back and you lose that draft. It takes a lot of work to get back to that front group. And Cam Peterson's done a nice job of getting himself back in the shop window there.
There's always a lot of fight in Josh Herrin, Hannah.
Certainly, Greg, and the biggest thing for him this season is having a whole season under his belt on this bike from last year. The team also got a few bits and parts for that motorcycle to really refine their overall setup. They're making far fewer adjustments overall because they have such a strong baseline from last year. It's also nice to have the teammate in Loris Baz, so Josh has been giving Baz a tow here and there, helping him get up to speed, but also asking Baz for some constructive criticism to see where he can improve. So Baz has been a welcome addition to that program as well.
And Baz right now running in 7th place as there was a pass for position as Cameron Peterson, the 45 in the Attack Performance Yamaha, gets around Sean Dillon Kelly, but still leading the way is that number 2 Herrin who Hannah was talking about. And yeah, also important to keep Herrin as comfortable as possible, especially after running the Super Sport machine at Daytona just a month ago.
And one of the things is we're kind of focused in on these first 5 riders, Greg, but just behind SDK in 6th, who is right in this lead group too. Baz, JD Beach, and Richie Escalante are really, really close to joining the party here. You can see there's Baz on that second Warhorse Ducati just behind this guy, Sean Dillon Kelly. Now, what I would expect to see, especially from the front 4, they're not going to mess with each other too much, especially in the middle portion of this race. We're hoping to see them get real tight and close racing, but notice how we haven't seen too much drafting and things down the back straightaway. We've seen guys kind of putting themselves into position, like Cam Peterson working his way through, Beaubier working his way through, SDK as well. And other than Bobby Fong taking one shot down there into turn 12 a lap or so ago, they're pretty much line astern right now.
Yeah, you tend to find in the Steel Commander Superbike category, when you get up to this premier class, that the maturity level increases quite a bit. There's not a lot of desperation most of the time, and especially they understand the big picture. This is the first race of 2024, the first race of 20 scheduled for the season. So no need to throw the kitchen sink at it when you have 14 laps to go. When we get to the stripe, it'll be 13 to go. And Josh Herrin, a little tighter line up the inside. And of course, if you're Bobby Fong and the rest of the field, you're also getting a good idea of just how fast this Ducati is with Josh Herrin aboard on the front and back straightaways. And so the plans are starting to form in their head. But for Gagne, he's losing a couple little bike lengths. Not much. It's nothing to panic about just yet. You got plenty of corners around Road Atlanta to make it up. Up to the turn 2 area, down through the S section they go now. The famous S's, looking from our turn 5 camera. And
SDK just loses a little bit at the beginning of the lap in this first part of the first sector. And he's able to kind of gather it back up and get onto the back of Cam Peterson by the end of that back straightaway. So again, it's these 5 guys. We're running in mid-25s right now, Greg. I believe that we qualified down in the 23s. And so 25.4. If you're at home thinking about it, 25.1 from Bobby Fong was the fastest lap of the race on the first flying lap of the race.
I want to point out Sean Dylan Kelly is doing a really great job for his first ever Superbike race, and his goal for this race was really to go out and learn as much as he can. He's working really well with the bike and the crew. He said that he can actually feel the bike a lot better. After spending the last 2 years on such stiff tires and stiff machinery, it's nice to be able to get good feedback from the bike so he can better understand how to improve.
Bobby Fong up the inside for the lead. Surprise Herrin, and now Herrin gets forced off the racetrack. He wasn't able to make that corner after being surprised by Fong. So Josh Herrin with a big save, and Gagne went around Bobby Fong, but Bobby Fong's going to retake the lead, and Gagne trying to drive up the inside up the hill. And just as we said things were settling down, all of a sudden it's getting racy up there. So Gagne, the #1 plate to the lead, Bobby Fong in second, and now Cameron Beaubier in third with Cam Peterson right there as well. Another look at it, Jay.
It's a really late move from Bobby in a very tricky spot, and for Josh it's such an unfortunate thing because he was kind of just rolling around at the front doing a really good job, and you can see Bobby comes from quite a ways back, sees Josh kind of turning it in, and the worst part for Josh here is just trying to get that thing through that thick gravel. You can see how high that bike is sitting through the gravel. For Herrin, he's going to come back on in 9th place, and he's just going to have to put the laps together and try to get some points and get out of here. But you can be guaranteed, Greg, that'll get repaid some point during the season.
All right, I want to add to what Hannah said is it looks like Cameron Beaubier trying to make a move around Fong. When she was talking about Sean Dylan Kelly and his feeling with the motorcycle, is now in 5th place back there on the Top Pro BMW. Is SDK. He told me that the first practice this weekend, which was yesterday, he was coming down to the bottom of the hill where they're heading now. He turned right and he lost the front and it came back. And he said, man, the first thing that I thought about was that wouldn't have been savable on my Moto2 bike. And that's part of that feeling that SDK is getting. And you know what, Jay? He said definitely the speed of the BMW M1000RR in Superbike trim, in stock 1000 trim caught him off guard. And then when he went to the Superbike, he said even more so. But SDK is a professional. He's really fast, and he's gotten used to that speed quickly, and now finds himself in a very solid 5th place. However, Loris Baz, JD Beach, and Risky Escalante are coming.
You know, Greg, there's a lot of good riders in the world, and when you see somebody like SDK go overseas and then not have success, it's not because he's just lost his talent. A lot of times it's just a feel. If you can't get the feel underneath you that you want, it's a very frustrating time, and I think every rider has gone through that. And when you get on something again that you can feel, all of a sudden you start to realize, hey, I haven't forgot how to do this. I know what I'm doing. And when you get kind of back with a guy that's helped you win a championship in the past, and Jeremy Toy, with so much knowledge and racecraft that Jeremy had, as you can see, Beaubier now goes by Bobby Fong down that back straightaway to close it off on SDK. It gives you a big boost of confidence when you start having that feeling back underneath you. Bobby Fong turns it back, though, and goes back past Beaubier as they go down into turn 10.
If you're a Cam Peterson fan who's in 4th place to number 45, unfortunately for him, he's got a penalty for passing under a waving yellow flag, and he's going to be relegated 2 positions. So Cameron Peterson, once we find that on our timing and scoring screen, as we learned from race control, is going to be docked 2 positions. So he's 4th currently on the racetrack, but he's actually going to be 6th. So Jake Gagne continues to lead the way from Bobby Fong and Cameron Beaubier. And Jason, after qualifying, did you think we would see 2 Yamahas up front?
Well, I did, but the one in second is the one I think is surprising most of us. And I think Cam Peterson, to your point, thinks he's got to drop back 2 positions because he sat up out of turn 1 and he moved himself back behind SDK and back behind somebody else. So I don't know if that's a penalty.
He's got to go 2 back. Sorry,
okay,
Jay.
so that's what it was.
He has
okay,
to go
great.
back 2 positions.
So that's exactly what he did. He's gone back 2 positions. You get a good look here at that Honda of Hayden Gillum. He's running 10th right now, and Greg, by all, but what we know, this is going to be in the stock 1000 trim. So right now, Gillum back there in 10th place, rounding out that top 10. But to your point, did I expect 2 Yamahas? I did, and this is no discredit to Bobby Fong. It's just that I know how hard that team has been working with Bobby to get this bike up front, and we saw him put some good rides together. Brainerd comes to mind last year. The sustainability of over a race distance was what I was more concerned with, and he's proven to us right now that that team has done their work, and this bike is a very capable bike.
So Sean Dylan Kelly is going to move into 4th place after Cam Peterson had to drop back 2 positions. But back there in 9th place, Josh Herrin just did the fastest lap of the race last time by at a 24.918. So Herrin, using the disappointment, frustration, maybe even aggravation of running off in the kitty litter is using it to his advantage and putting in some fast laps. The question is, as 7.8 seconds behind is the number 2, how fast can he keep going and how much can he claw back in terms of the points?
Well, you know he's not going to give up, Greg. He's 4 seconds back right now behind Escalante and 7.8. And like you said, that number came down this last lap because he ran the fastest lap of the race. So Herrin is motivated to try to get himself back up to these guys the best he can. Here he comes down through those S's, and all he's thinking right now is hit marks, ride as hard and as fast as you can. He's not thinking about any tire conservation right now. It's a matter of head down and just do qualifying laps for the next 6 or 7 laps and see where it gets him.
Wow. Let's see what he can do. We've already seen incredible racing here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Steel Commander Superbike race number 1. We have 3 out front. Jake Gagne is your number 1 plate. He, of course, is on the Attack Performance Yamaha. And then on the Wrench Motorcycles Yamaha, one is number 50, Bobby Fong. And on the Tytler Cycles BMW is Cameron Beaubier back in action. And yeah, Top Pro Racing, number 40, Sean Dillon Kelly back from the World Championship and in Steel Commander Superbike in 4th place, holding off the advances of Loris Baz, Cameron Peterson, JD Beach, Escalante, and Herrin in 9th, with Hayden Gillum on the Honda in 10th.
Yeah, JD Beach, this is another guy that we welcome back to the championship, a guy who I think that we should have never lost, but he did go dirt tracking for, what, 3 or 4 years, Greg? He always wanted to get back to road racing. I had a great chat with him at COTA, and he was talking about how excited he is to be back. But our focus right now is on these 3 guys right now, as you could throw a blanket over them as they come down through the S's, still doing the high 25-8s right now for these guys up in front. And just so people know, 25 flat for that guy last in the screen over there, Josh Herrin. So he clawed another almost second back to the leaders.
Unreal. Boy, Jake Gagne is looking so smooth out front after the team did so much work during the offseason. Hannah?
Greg, they did make a lot of changes to the bike. I talked to Jake about it. He said there's a different chassis, some front end changes, give them more room to play with geometry. So having more adjustability could be a real step forward in their program as he tries to go for that 4th consecutive title. He said it's going to be the hardest season yet to do that because the depth of talent in the field is just so impressive. But Jake, as always, is really just focused on running his own race.
Yeah, and you know, since MotoAmerica took over this Superbike Championship back in 2015, Cameron Beaubier has won 5 of them, but he won it in 15, 16, 18, 19, and 20. Of course, Tony Elias won in 17. And Gagne's won it 21, 22, 23. So the most we've had in terms of back-to-back championships has been 3 in a row. And it would be something else, especially with the depth of field. Not just so much of the talent of racers, but now you're looking at the talent level of crew chiefs, of mechanics, of data engineers that has really improved dramatically over the last couple seasons.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And you look at Jake Gagne. I had a talk with him Thursday when I arrived at the track, and he says, Jason, I said, how's testing been? Oh, testing has been great. I just want to go races. Cam Peterson has crashed up in that turn 2-3 area. So Cam really did have a good race going. He had that penalty. He dropped back a couple positions, but he is down and out right now up in turn 2 and 3. But Gagne had told me, he says, Jason, I'm just ready to go racing. Testing is done. I just want to be over with all that. I just want to see. He had as much anticipation, I think, for this season as the rest of us as he gets that bike sideways out over that yellow line coming onto this back straightaway. Look at this guy. Josh Herrin again, 25-1 the last time through. The leaders are at 25-6 and 25-7. If nothing else, Herrin is putting that Dunlop tire to use. They're going to be able to look at it and see for tomorrow if this is a pace that's going to be sustainable to run up front, because that's where he'll be then.
And of course, tomorrow could bring us a much different day.
Yep.
As we have rain in the forecast. So anything could happen tomorrow, but we'll wait to see what actually happens when we get there, because right now, as we come across the line, it's 6 to go in the Steel Commander Superbike race number 1. Our first race of 2024, and it's still Gagne, Fong, and Beaubier. Throw a blanket over these 3. No real hurry to make some big moves, but Jay, we're probably talking another 2 laps, and then things are going to start getting a little dicey.
And to your point, when you start thinking about things, look at this bike in second. This is a privateer R1. Dave Anthony jumped off that bike last year, put Bobby Fong on it. And then you got Robbie Peterson down there helping crew chief this motorcycle. You talked earlier about Nick Seiling and him building that swing arm for that motorcycle. As we get another great look at the fastest man on track right now on that number 2. But for Bobby Fong, they've put this great little group together, as it looks like Cam Beaubier dropped back just a little bit here. But for Bobby Fong to have the trust in this team, for David Anthony to jump off that seat and put Bobby on it, and to see where they're at now to start this season. And Bobby's the kind of guy, he knows all these tracks. He's very, very much a veteran. He'll be there at all of them.
So Gagne, who obviously had a full season with his championship versus the two guys behind him. Hey, look, play MotoAmerica for cash both today and tomorrow during Supersport, Superbike, and Baggers Race. Go to nxtbets.com/playma for the latest odds posted for today's races. So go check that out. And if you had Jake Gagne, things are looking good for you with 5 to go in our Steel Commander Superbike race number 1. There are certain places now where Gagne's starting to eke out just a little bit of an advantage.
Yeah.
And that gap going now to 2 or 3 bike lengths between them.
Let's not forget this guy in third. 5 Superbike championships. Cam Beaubier back and healthy and right on the tail of these two. And is he kind of playing the cat and mouse game where he's sitting there and seeing where things are with about 4.5 laps to go? Are we going to see that number 6 start to do something with these two guys in front? We've seen him take a couple shots at Bobby Fong and then not really be able to go anywhere. This guy here, Josh Herron, is in 8th. I expect him to, he has a very good chance here, Greg, to be 5th, possibly even 4th. He's only some 3 seconds behind STK, but like I said, 25.2. STK is at 25.8, but Baz is at a 26.3. So here we go, Beaubier pulls out of that draft on the number 50, not quite past him enough as they head down this hill. That number 50 bike's not slow, is it?
No, that is a very fast motorcycle. And boy, what a job the Wrench Motorcycle team have done to put an awesome R1 under Bobby Fong and to be so deep into this race too, Jason. And you know, we talk a lot about setup of the motorcycle, and it's really important when we get deep in the race for tire wear and tire life. And looking at Cameron Beaubier and the Tytler Cycle BMW, that's the disadvantage that he has, is not finishing the season last year and getting more development on what was last year a new motorcycle. Now for this team, Beaubier is on a new frame and a new swing arm, and it's an updated motorcycle, and it's good, but still they need time to help develop it a little bit more, where you're looking at the number 1 bike as just a very well refined machine.
You also have to ask yourself, Greg, if the signing of Toprak or Zgatioglu in World Superbike, if some of the information from those tests has trickled its way overseas here to us and to these bikes, both to Cam Beaubier's and Sean Dillon Kelly, as now Josh Herron is on the back of Escalante and JD Beach, and he's got his teammate just up the road here, and I promise you there's a fire under that guy right now as the number 2 sneaks through on Escalante. He's going to get in the draft of that Tyler's BMW number 95 at JD Beach, and he's going to try to make his way even further forward after that as he'll have his teammate to deal with. But you can almost be guaranteed that by this time the next lap, that bike will probably see itself in 5th place as the leaders come down the hill into turn 10. This time by, Greg, we're going to be 3 to go.
All right, we'll see how many laps they're going to let it go until it starts getting spicy. But on the Josh Herron front, Jay, it's just incredible to see him. He just keeps getting better and better and better as a rider, and he is pushing so hard. But for Jake Gagne, he's controlling the pace of this race. So the question for us is, if Bobby Fong's going to give him a shot or Cameron Beaubier, what does he have in the tank? Nobody's gone around him enough for him to give up what he's got going on.
Yeah, where's that shot going to be? As you can see, Herron has made the pass on JD Beach, and now he'll go after his teammate. I don't know if he'll be able to make the pass on him down into turn 5. I expect the pass from Josh Herron will most probably come into the turn 6 area. Now for Herron, we know how he likes to kind of be the lone soldier in a team, but him and Baz have such a great relationship. You can see, again, if you follow these guys, they're always hanging out together and things. There's a mutual respect. Herron actually said yesterday he helped Baz a little bit on his qualifying because Loris been struggling ever so slightly. Here's that pass into turn 6 that was predicted, and now he's just going to keep his head going forward and focus on seeing if he can get up to the back of STK with 2.5 to go. Beaubier falls back ever so slightly again, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's kind of weird to see that accordion effect with Beaubier. Wondering what's going on there, if there was some lap traffic or maybe just a little bobble. Either way, he's there a couple bike lengths behind as we're getting close to 2 laps to go in this one. And Josh Herron, Jason, you talked about it. He's worked his way up to 5th spot. It's going to be interesting to see that gap. Last time by the stripe, he was 5.2 behind our leaders. but the laps are running out for Herrin to possibly make his way onto the podium, but this isn't done yet.
6 laps ago, Greg, he was almost 9 seconds back, and he's doing these lap times passing through people. 2 to go. Where's Bobby Fong going to take this shot? That's the thing I'm most curious at. We've seen the speed of that bike. If he can get off of turn 7 with Gagne, maybe Fong hasn't shown his cards, because we know Bobby is a strong braker at the end of these straights. And right now, his bike looks hooked up. All 3 of these bikes look good. Now, this is where we've seen Cameron fall back a little bit. Out of turn 5, we've seen him kind of lose contact with these guys. Not this lap, though. That number 6 is squarely planted on the back of those 2 R1s right directly in front of him.
And it looks like Beaubier's going to try to go up the inside on Fong. No, there is no real estate there. Fong so good on the brakes. Into turn 7 they go. Onto the back straightaway with a lap and a half to go.
Man, that number 1 just jumps off that corner.
Hold the trigger.
It literally jumps off that corner. Makes me wonder if Bobby's using first or second gear, because Gagne's bike jumped, and I would suspect that's first as Beaubier goes through on Fong. And now Beaubier's going to look down the inside with a lap or so to go.
It's Cameron Beaubier. He actually crashed earlier in the weekend there, but he was able to hold on to it. No confidence lost, but it was slowed down enough where Fong was able to make a bike length back. And here comes the fight right back by the number 1 plate. Gagne wants to lead this. I think he's got something in the tank. We're going to the white flag lap. So now all bets are off here in the Steel Commander Superbike race number 1. Into turn number 1 they go. And Cameron Beaubier right on the rear wheel of Gagne.
I don't know, man. I think Beaubier's just been kind of sitting back there, because that BMW went past Fong easier than it has all race long. And so he just needs to stay glued to the back of that number 1. And if I know Beaubier, he's going to pull out of that draft, and he's going to go down into turn 10 extremely tight and make whoever wants to beat him go around the outside of him. So right now is the patient game. I don't think he's going to try to do anything with Gagne down at turn 6, although I could be wrong, because he got a tremendous drive out of there, and he's going to go past the number 1. He's got a lot of belief in that bike. Gagne turns it back up underneath him, though, and now Fong's going to get a double bike draft. Let's see if this number 1 gets off this corner as good as it did the lap
and
before.
We're going to see if Beaubier has been holding back on the throttle. The BMW's got a lot of horsepower. He hasn't done a lot of drafting and passing, but here he goes on the back straightaway as Cam Peterson lap traffic. So Beaubier takes the lead. Now it's going to be a braking duel down into turn number 10, and Beaubier leaves it so late. Can he get it turned? He does a great job. Gagne now with a couple bike lengths between them. Up over the hill they come. We're going to see if Beaubier's going to park it up the inside. Down the hill into the hard braking corner. It's Cameron Beaubier back to MotoAmerica Superbike action onto the front straightaway. Beaubier behind the bubble pulls the trigger and holds on to win by 0.2 of a second over Gagne and Bobby Fong rounding out the podium. Welcome back to MotoAmerica, Cameron Beaubier. Incredible. Wow, and we have an incident on the front straightaway.
Oh man, something on our front straightaway here. As you can see these guys, but we're keeping an eye. There's Josh Herrin. A tremendous job for Josh to finish 5th, and he's up behind Bobby Fong now. And so this could get a little interesting.
Well, Herrin gestures. Looks like he's not too happy, obviously. We understand it. Bobby knows what happened. But it's Beaubier, Gagne, Fong, Sean Dillon Kelly in 4th. What a run for SDK, and what a debut for him in Superbike. Josh Herrin 5th, Loris Baz in 6th, JD Beach takes 7th, Richie Escalante in 8th place, Hayden Gillum in 9th, Max Flinders, a top 10 for Flinders on the 88. A great run for him and his team, and it looks like it's Baz, so there was an incident after the checkered flag.
Is that Richie Escalante?
I believe it's Escalante, because, yeah, he was the Vision Wheel M4X Star Suzuki bike in the mix.
From where Greg and I sit, we can see out our booth down the front straightaway, and I saw a bike just launched in the air, Greg. So hopefully I saw Baz up and away, and he's okay. It's good to see Richie up and walking as well.
Well, you hate to see that definitely after the checkered flag. Hope both those riders are okay. But the focus is now on Cameron Beaubier. The number 6 played it perfectly in race number 1. It has been such a long off season for him with the injury and coming back, and there's been some great life changes, a wife and a baby, and boy, Cameron Beaubier back out on top. And Jake Zemke, his manager, talked to me about Cameron Beaubier's hunger and his desire to be back on the top step of the box. He's there, and we get to talk to him when we come back.
And the live action continues here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta to wrap up the Steel Commander Superbike race. And you see Cameron Beaubier running around the track, waving to the fans, the spectators that watch that exciting race unfold, Roger.
What an exciting race. I mean, we had 5 riders there early on. And, you know, Cam Beaubier just kind of looked like he could fall back a second and close the gap at will. And almost like he was just sitting back, hanging out, waiting until the last lap. But what an exciting race. We've been wanting to see Cam and Jake Gagne go head-to-head. We got to see that today. Throw Bobby Fong in the mix. Josh Herron, he would have definitely been in the mix if he didn't have that little off-track excursion there early on in the race. But for Cam Beaubier, we were wondering how he was going to come back. Had all those big crashes back-to-back before he had to have the season-ending surgery, and it looks like Beaubier's back and better than ever.
Yeah, and he said coming into this race weekend that he felt stronger than he had in a long time after taking those weeks and months to heal up his body and just get ready for this season. So great to see him back, and I think it's a sign of things to come. But Bobby Fong right there in the mix. He was the pole sitter going into the race today, and he was able to hold on. He didn't make any mistakes, and it was a clean race for Bobby.
Yeah, it was a pretty clean race, and it was just, you know, I was thinking before the race, we've seen Bobby qualify really well, but, you know, in the race, run off the track or make a mistake. And it was really cool to see him qualify well, but also be able to be there at the end and he was looking to make passes at the end for the win. So that's just awesome for Bobby, the Wrench Racing crew. And also I think it's great for the series as well. It shows you that you can put a team together and come MotoAmerica Superbike Racing, you don't have to be the factor team, and you can come here and you buy the right parts, you get the right rider, hire the right people, you can run at the front.
And this is just the first of 20 races that we're going to watch over the course of the season on MotoAmerica Live Plus for all of the action all season long. And to see everybody up there in the parity in the classes, it's going to be an exciting season, Roger.
And we're in for a good one, especially as Sean Dillon Kelly gets a little bit more comfortable on the Superbike for him. Only 3.5 seconds back off the win in his very first Superbike race. That's pretty impressive, and he's got to be feeling pretty good about that.
And Jake Gagne, our 3-time defending Superbike champion, he finished second on the podium today. He said it to us earlier this weekend that he knew it was going to be a tough fight if he was going to go home with 11 race wins again this season. Let's hear from our podium. We're going to send it back over to Greg, Jason, and Hannah.
Steel Commander Superbike, here's the end of the race, Jason, and the passes for the lead. Beaubier. Whoa, that was a good one. Yep. Then Gagne wasn't having any of it.
He's got that much confidence in that number 6. He didn't think those guys could draft him. So, yeah, he was playing a little bit of cat and mouse, I think, was Cam Beaubier. But that's what you'd expect. Guy didn't win 5 championships on accident. And for him to come back after a little bit of a struggle and a rough year last year, last time we saw this guy was at Pittsburgh and, you know, in an accident in that chicane. So, huge congrats to Cam Beaubier.
So the results have 0.2 of a second margin of victory over Gagne. Bobby Fong, outstanding run. SDK Herron, what a bounce back to go 4.2. Boy, tomorrow, if it's dry, is going to be something special. Let's get right down to Hannah.
The first Superbike race winner of the season, Cameron Beaubier, and it was certainly a hard-fought victory. How much patience did you have to exercise to really make your way up to the lead group and then ultimately get out in front for this win?
Quite a bit, you know. It's tough putting yourself on the second row with these guys. The series is packed this year. It's really stacked with some incredible riders, and yeah, I was having a tough time getting Bob on the brakes. He was so deep on the brakes, and I kind of gave up there after the first few laps, trying to pass him going into turn 10 because he was so deep in there, and I just tried to play it patient, and I'm glad I did because it was pretty greasy out there, but feels so good to get this first one done. after a pretty tough off season and tough end of the year. So yeah, hats off to my Tytlers guys. Big thanks to them, BMW, Bell, Alpine Stars, the man above for keeping us all safe out here, and all the fans for coming out.
Off to a great start for Cameron Bobier. Our second place finisher today, Jake Gagne. Jake, you led quite a few of those laps there. You seem like you settled into a comfortable spot, but these guys were keeping the pressure on you the whole race. How do you kind of ride defensively but try to hold on to that first spot?
Yeah, I mean, first off, this field is so stacked, and getting a good, clean start and first lap was nice. I just kind of wanted to stay out of trouble. I knew it was going to be a long race. These Dunlops held up really well. This Yamaha was really working awesome. Yeah, I struggled for sure that second half, and I never knew who was behind me, but I knew there was a bunch of guys. You know, I could hear them, and sure enough, Cam blew by me on, I think, that second to last lap, and we went back and forth. But yeah, biggest thing is, you know, we brought it home. We're up on the podium. We learned a lot, and again, thanks off to this Attack, Performance, Progressive, Yamaha, Rye Helmets, Alpine Stars, the whole team. Been working hard in the off season because, like I keep saying, this year is going to be, I think, the best year of Superbike racing we've had in a long time. So I'm happy to be up here for a good start.
Congratulations to Jake Gagne. Third place today goes to Bobby Fong. Unfortunately, he had to head out for the start of the Mission King of the Baggers race, but I have his crew chief here, Robbie Peterson. Robbie, how much does this race win, or this race finish, mean to you?
The world, honestly, Hannah. The team has worked so hard. Dave Anthony, 16-hour days, 20-hour days for the last month. You can see the bike's got a whole lot of new equipment on, so just thank you to everybody. And Bobby aged about 30 years, as you can tell, during that race. So, yeah.
Big congrats to the whole wrench team, guys.
Yeah, what a schedule Bobby Fong has in these back-to-back races is pretty incredible. But, boy, I'm going to tell you something, man. It was a good race by these two back on top. And, you know, since MotoAmerica has been around, we've only had 3 championships. But, look, here is the incident between Bobby Fong and Josh Herrin. But at the end of the day, they're competitors. And this was the little, hey, don't worry about it. We'll have more on the other side.
Take a look at the podium, Roger. What a bummer. The races, there's so much action here, and Bobby Fong doesn't get to go up and celebrate that third place finish.
Yeah, I mean, you get on the Superbike podium after so long and having a, you know, even thinking that you're out of racing there at one time and come back and put that Superbike on the podium and be fighting for a win. You don't get to sit there, enjoy it, but he'll take those podiums any way he can get it.
His team is enjoying this trophy presentation, though. As I'm watching out the window, the fans and teams making their way out for the final race of the day. It is the Mission King of the Baggers race that will be coming up next. And you look at Jake Gagne now out there with that Dunlap pad on. Race number 2 tomorrow. Talked about the tire wear, talked about having that second half of the race, but we're expecting weather. What change will that impact?
That's going to change a lot, but, you know, all these guys are really good in the wet, especially Cam. Jake Gagne is really good in the wet, but it's definitely it'll throw some wild cards in there for sure. There'll be some guys in there we won't expect. It's going to be totally different, and it also depends on how much rain we have. How wet is the track going to be? Is it going to be mixed conditions, or is it going to looks like it's going to be really wet? So it's going to be a challenge. It's also going to be a lot cooler tomorrow as well, as they say, and that makes the rain even more difficult when it's cool out.
We did see some aggression out on the racetrack as well. We saw that move Bobby Fong made on Josh Herrin to overtake and then sent Josh wide. You were sitting here watching it. What was your take on it?
Well, I mean, Bobby definitely got in there deep, and it was almost like he couldn't get it stopped, and he either had to make the pass or he was going to run into Josh. And, you know, if I'm Bobby, I would try to make the pass, and if I was Josh, I would have been upset. You know, he kind of ran off there, but after the checkered flag, it looked like actually Josh ended up being cool with it, and that's Superbike racing. That's also, it's so competitive this year. If somebody opens the door, Bobby has to try to make that pass because he has 2-3 guys behind him trying to make the pass. So it was a tough pass. It was a hard pass, and you know, I'm sure Josh will remember that throughout the season.
You know, another thing that occurred after the checker flag, we saw the aftermath of what occurred between Richie Escalante and Loris Baz. It was right here going into turn 1, but it looked like it was a big incident.
Yeah, it looked, this is the aftermath of it. We didn't get to see the actual. That was really down in the braking zone by turn 1 after the checkered flag. So, you know, usually when you see an accident like that happen after the checkered flag, it's usually right after the checkered flag because somebody slowed down. But I'm not sure really what happened there so far down the straightaway. Rich Escalante looks like he's up, but he's walking gingerly. And Loris Baz, you know, I'm not sure. We didn't get to see the camera angle of them, but hopefully those two guys are going to be up and okay for tomorrow's races.
Yes, and the crew continues to clean up, make sure the track is clean to go for our last race of the day. It's certainly something that we will follow up on when our coverage begins tomorrow morning, if not later on today. Fans right now on the hillside enjoying the sights and sounds here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. We're going to send it back over to Greg and Jason.
Steel Commander Superbike coverage is brought to you by Steel Commander Corps, a leading steel building manufacturer offering expertise, innovation, and a dedication to quality. And by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series.
Back here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta after celebrations. Oh, dude, come on. Cameron Beaubier is always just the nicest dude ever. That goes to actually the daughter sitting on top of the shoulders. No question about that. Race 1 highlights. Jason Pridmore. It was entertaining.
It was entertaining. As you see, Josh Herron rode around the outside of SDK at the top of the hill on this opening lap. The number 2 showing incredible pace today. He was a little tight in here with Bobby Fong, and that was going to change Josh Herron's race, although he turned some incredible laps to fight back to 5th. It was these 3 guys that broke away at the front, guys that we have seen for so many years. 8 Superbike Championships between these 2 guys going at the front. Beaubier goes down the inside of Gagne, only to have that favor also return down into turn 12. Beaubier then tried turn 6, had that BMW backed in there. Gagne again back up underneath, but Cam Beaubier then would draft past the number 1. He would break extremely deep down into turn 10, and it was just enough to hold off Jake Gagne, and a tremendous ride by Bobby Fong.
Incredible ride for Cameron Beaubier. And our coverage will continue at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta when we get back. Steel Commander Superbike Race 1 in the books.
And the grid is now getting set for the final race. It is the Mission King of the Baggers. And Roger, we have watched as these bikes have gotten faster and faster over the last couple of seasons. Bobby Fong was on pole early on in the weekend, and just some impressive times being laid down.
Yeah, really impressive lap times. Bobby yesterday being the quickest. We also seen quite a few mistakes yesterday out of some of the riders, and I think that just shows you how hard these guys are pushing, how competitive it is. They're, you know, absolutely, if you're not on the limit and you're not pushing, you're going to find yourself pretty far down the grid. We see Bobby coming back here to the front row there, second in the lap times. Troy Herfoss today, 28.5. I mean, that's just incredible lap time around here, and he's really figured out this track. He took it slow. Friday, he was talking about he wanted to push and be further up the sheets, but he also needed to be smart and do it the right way.
And he did that 28.5 in the second session of qualifying to earn the pole position. But then he went out for the 6-rider dash and the challenge race. He took home the check for the $5,000, but he was able to do a 28.8 over those 2 laps. And that really shows that it's not just that it's quick, but he can actually repeat it.
And it gave the rest of the guys a lot of homework to do in between that challenge, seeing that he could do those 28s. Everybody else picked up a lot of speed as well. It's going to be a little bit different doing 2 laps, and now the race is going to be 8. But he's been tough to beat. I mean, we thought he was going to be fast and he was going to make some noise, and he's definitely doing that.
He is, and out of the 4 races that have already occurred in the Mission King of the Baggers Championship season, Troy has won 1, but it's Kyle Wyman who has won the other 3. So he has the target on his back in terms of championship points for this season. But that's Hayden Gillum with that number 1 plate aboard his Harley Davidson, and he has the bullseye on his back because everyone wants to take it away.
And he's really found a lot of speed this weekend, been, you know, a little bit off. Talked about yesterday, they made a lot of changes this off season to the bike to try to, you know, make a step to the rest of the guys, and it's taken them a little while to kind of get that fine-tuned. And it looks like this weekend, especially if you look at the lap times or the challenge, they're starting to figure out how to make that thing work the way they want.
Yeah, they've been able to just tick away at it a little bit at a time. Didn't unload the way that they wanted to, but they have been able to improve every time that they've made it out. This is the number 33 of Kyle Wyman that I mentioned, our points leader coming into the race. He's won 3 of the 4 so far. He won both races here last season at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. He will now find his position on the front row of this starting grid, and we're going to send it back over to Greg White and Jason Pridmore.
Welcome back to Road Atlanta. Podium celebrations for Superbike race number 1, courtesy of Steel Commander. And yeah, Cameron Beaubier takes that big win. And here's a look at the championship points, and this is how we pay points. 25 for a win, 20 for second, 16 for third. And then once we get to that 5th and 6th place position, it goes 1 point all the way down to 15. So Beaubier takes the points lead, Gagne in second. And really to think, Bobby Fong, Jason Pridmore could be in this championship fight all season long without question. And this is Bobby Fong right now getting ready for what's next, because we still have right here on the same network Mission King of the Baggers coming at you, and a very busy Bobby Fong.
Yeah, absolutely. He's on the front row for this one as well. You can see this is very rare that he wasn't able to get out of his suit and put his other suit on for this bike. So Bobby went straight from the podium. We didn't get to interview him. Straight to the front row, and he's going to be battling for a win in this class as well.
Yep, he had to get out there and do his sighting lap, and now he's got a few moments to relax before we get Mission King of the Baggers going right here. That's going to be an exciting race, because we know there's at least 6 riders that can get after it. But Steel Commander Superbike was a spectacular race. And guess what? No matter how much fun you had today, we get to do it all again tomorrow. So don't forget to check it out. It's going to be awesome as this field continues to make improvements and close in on each other. For Hannah and Jason, I'm Greg. Thanks so much for watching Steel Commander Superbike, the premier class in the MotoAmerica Championship for 2024.